Hi and welcome to another devotional video from Open Door Church. In my last couple of videos we've been following the fortunes of Lot through the destruction of the city of Sodom. Today we briefly return to the camp of his uncle Abraham. And in Genesis 19 and verse 27 it says, "Early the next morning, that is after the destruction of Sodom, Abraham got up and returned to the place where he had stood before the Lord. He looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah, toward all the land of the plain, and he saw dense smoke rising from the land, like smoke from a furnace." To understand what this means to Abraham, it helps to just review his journey so far. It begins in the city of Ur, down the south of the river Euphrates in the land of Chaldea. Abraham's father Terah has three sons, Abraham, Nahor and Haran. And Haran has a son and daughter, Lot and Milcah. And Haran dies in Ur. Terah, the grandfather, probably becomes Lot's guardian. At some point, Nahor marries Milcah, his niece, and Lot's sister, and they remain in Ur. But Terah sets out to go to the land of Canaan with Abraham and Lot. And they travel all the way up the river Euphrates until they get to a place in what is now southern Syria, and there they settle, and there Terah dies. So at this point, Abraham and Lot are all the family that they each have left. And when God calls Abraham to go to the land of Canaan to complete the journey that his father Terah set out on, Lot travels with him. They travel together down the coast road, down the coast of the Mediterranean to Canaan, and they settle there for a while, and then there's a famine. And they travel down to Egypt where there is food, and there they remain for a while, and then they return to Canaan. So they've been through an awful lot together, uncle and nephew. But when they return to Canaan, they've acquired so much livestock that one patch of land cannot support them all. And arguments break out over grazing and water between their herdsmen. And so they separate, Lot choosing to settle in the valley and eventually in the city of Sodom. Then God comes to Abraham and announces his intention to judge Sodom for its awful sin and behavior and for its abuse and exploitation of the weak and the poor primarily, both materially and sexually, and for its own gratification and pleasure. And Abraham bargains with God and said, well, what if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Surely you won't destroy 50 people with the ungodly. And Abraham bargains God down to 10, and God agrees, if there are 10 righteous people in the city, I will not destroy it. And at that they part, and God and two angels depart for Sodom to investigate and to bring judgment. Abraham retires and spends what I imagine was a pretty restless night. And in the morning he arises and goes back to the place where he met with God and where the plain is in view. And he sees smoke rising, and he knows that Sodom is destroyed. And as far as he is aware at this time, Lot with it, his only living blood relative, his nephew. It's hard to overstate the emotion that Abraham must be going through at this point, the distress, the overwhelming sense of loss, bereavement, the loneliness, but perhaps most of all the sense of failure, because he's taken on the responsibility for Lot and for his safety on behalf of his dead brother, and he has let his brother down, he's let his nephew down, he has failed, and Lot is gone, as far as he knows. And to cap it all, in the place where he met with God, God is not there. God does not show up immediately and provide reassurance and say, it's okay, I brought Lot out, he lives. And most of us would experience or have a loved one who experiences an existential crisis, something that threatens who we are and our confidence in who we are, something that brings us overwhelming distress, loss, maybe pain. And it can be and feel very lonely, and it may even feel that God has deserted us. But why on earth does God not turn up in Abraham's moment of need? Well, let me share with you what I think may be 3 reasons. The first is that sometimes we need time to digest the enormity of something. We need to face the reality of it, not just sweep it under the carpet and move on, not just get instant reassurance. If we do that, we may not learn the lessons to make the changes, and we may bury those emotions and feelings, and they come up later on to bite us. We carry the baggage of it for the rest of our lives if we don't deal with it in a healthy way. Restorative justice is a great example of this, where a perpetrator comes face to face with their victim and has to hear and understand the consequences of their actions. They have to face the enormity of what happened. Secondly, we often need time to process what just happened, to accept it, to make it a part of our journey. Before we can accept comfort, let alone learn lessons, we need to absorb it, to take it in. For sure, we need to continue with our lives. It's not healthy just to descend into a pit of self-pity and just be overwhelmed totally by what's taken place. But somewhere between that and just brushing it aside, there is a healthy process of digesting and taking in and coming to terms with what's taken place. Yes, we will need advice and maybe comfort, but, and this is my third point, advice and comfort is often received best when we seek it out when we're ready. For sure, there can be a time to take someone aside and put an arm around them and say, you may not want to hear this, but I think you need to. But straight after the event is not that time. What we need absolutely is human warmth and comfort and unconditional love. And so God leaves Abraham to return to the place where he can find that which for him is in his family, his wife, his child, and his household. And so my prayer for each of us this morning, my prayer for you, if you're facing a crisis right now, or if you're close to someone who is, or if this has brought back memory of a crisis that you went through and never properly and healthily dealt with, I pray that God will be to you what you need him to be. I pray that in spite of all of the restrictions we face, those who care about you and those you're close to will be able to be to you what you need. But I pray that you will find the grace and the strength to face what you need to face, to learn what you need to learn, and to change anything that needs to be changed. So may God enable that, and God bless you. Amen.